sound. I have a little video too, which will make it a bit easier. Let me go to slideshow, play from start. Okay, great. And everybody can see my screen? Excellent. So the focus based on Dominique's communication to me, really to look at AI plus spatial and what that means. And like I said, it's an ever-changing landscape. We started the company with that goal of how can you use technology proactively to give you a sense of agency over how you feel. And we're very mission focused as a team. We really believe that people should think of their mental and emotional well-being in the same way that they do their physical health, that you don't want to wait until you're in crisis or being diagnosed with a mental health condition or crisis. You want to proactively build resilience and even just learning an emotional language. You can see that there's huge impact on society. And I'm so grateful to young people nowadays who really do care about their mental health and well-being and how they're feeling. And one of the things I'm really proud of is that TRIPP is very popular with men, and I can talk about some of the progress there. Our approach is to have a single tech stack that can power an experience specific to different device types. So we have a mobile application that you can talk to our agent. Our AI is called Kokua. It's the Hawaiian word for support or help. We are working very aggressively now to get live on all the AI audio devices coming to market over the next 18 months. We have a phone number that you can call and just talk to our agent. And I'll share some insight there that we've seen. And of course, our VR app is what we launched first, these fully immersive experiences. And we have Kokua live on all of these platforms.
TRIPP for VR is packed with fully immersive worldscapes, guided meditations, breathing exercises, and mixed reality gifts in your personal sanctum that help boost your mood. And when you just need someone to talk to, Kokua is your AI guide who is always available to create real-time, personalized reflections.
You are not alone in this experience.
You can also create a voice avatar for Kokua, which lets you use your own voice as a wellness guide. Studies show that hearing affirmations and guidance from yourself can drastically improve your inner dialogue and positivity. Here's mine as an example.
As you breathe in, feel the energy of your best self expanding. And as you breathe out, release any lingering doubts or worries.
Kokua and voice cloning also work on TRIPP Mobile, so be sure to give that a try today. Or maybe you just feel like moving around, which brings us to Sound Bath. This is a new musical flow game where every strike or vibration of a sound bowl summons different sounds and beats from artists like Tiesto and David Starfire. You can already use Kokua, Sanctum, and Sound Bath in virtual reality today, and soon each of these trippy experiences will be available on AI and augmented reality smart glasses.
That gives you a little bit of an overview on kind of what our experiences are like. We found that when we started the company, and this is a slide from our very first pitch deck, it was really about trying to identify how someone was feeling, figuring out ways to measure that, and then adapting the experiences in real time to different biosignals, how they said they were feeling. And that, we're very early with this strategy, and we've been evolving our platform very specifically with that direction. As a result, 3 markets have emerged. We are primarily right now, our main business is on consumer, but we have been getting a lot of traction in healthcare, as well as with universities and student mental health. And we are now an approved vendor to support the Veterans Health Administration. And we also just got our first order from the DoD. So supporting military, I think that goes to the fact that we are, as I mentioned, very popular with men. Most healthcare, mental health apps tend to be about 70% female. And I think when you bring these solutions into different enterprises, you'll see the adoption with women is usually higher. That doesn't mean that men don't need it. It's just maybe a lot of the apps don't speak to them, or there's still a stigma and we have to help coax them. So with TRIPP, the brand doesn't really feel woo-woo, and it's maybe a little more accessible to men. I come from the games industry, so that's been a big focus for us. And now we're seeing younger people, Gen Z, definitely last year, Gen Z increased 32% on our platform. So as people start entering into college, their lives get more stressful. We're finding that that's when we start to see them come into our app. One of the key features that we launched with when we launched in VR was we needed a mobile app because we knew that in order to be successful in virtual reality, we'd need to be able to communicate with the users outside of the headset. And so we created a mobile app where you could log your mood, but one of the core features was to personalize the VR experience by uploading your own images that would show up kind of randomly in the experiences, and people felt like a really deep connection. We found that people who did that were 400% more engaged than those who didn't. So personalization is a really key focus. And we also saw that those people had more active sessions. 60% were active 6 months after their account creation date. So that was, the first data point where we realized, okay, more personalization features. When you look at the category of what they call digital therapeutics, and there have been many companies that have attempted to commercialize these, they tend to hyper focus on the approval funnel and make that a priority of getting payer reimbursement, FDA approval, whether it's for 510(k) or not, as a medical device. And then as an afterthought, they'll say, oh, let's add a resilience score, or, they go, we need to gamify it. What I know from the game industry is that's a lot harder than it looks. Gamification often can look what I call lamification. And engagement is the medicine. So it really has to be the inherent to the design of the application. We're really proud of our retention. We have, as you can see in our subscribers, 53% will be retained into their third year, subscribed for 3 years. Those are really high numbers. And we think a lot of that has to do with our approach. Here's the lamification, here's your mindfulness score, you're this, you're that. There has to be a much deeper connection. So what we found was we gave these augmented reality gifts. Here's a little video of these digital vinyls of meditation music and topics that you can play on a cosmic augmented reality music player that we would give you. And as soon as we launched this, we saw immediately our daily active users 7-day average increase, like right there. You get these rewards for using the app 3 days within the week. And then since then, we have continued to evolve that. And in our mobile app, by checking in, you'll start to get what we call aura points. And as a result of these gamification features, we're already seeing that 20% of our monthly active users use our app 3 days a week. There's all kinds of fun little gadgets, and people personalize their space. It's actually been very successful for us. We launched our first AI agent. It was built on when we launched TRIPP in December of 2019, we instrumented mood data collection. We asked people at the beginning and the end of each session how they felt. We worked with the National Mental Health Innovation Center and some neuroscientists at Stanford on a way to collect that data in a way that was substantive, and then as a result, we've collected 25 million feelings from our users over the years. We use that as the context to build our AI platform. We don't connect directly to any of the LLMs, and I'll tell you why that's important. But we were one of the first voice agents live on the Apple Store. We launched Kokua 2 years ago. And we've been evolving it and iterating it over time. We have 31 voices now. This is an old slide. You can even do real-time voice cloning in VR and mobile, where you create your own voice avatar. It can speak multiple languages. Some are more native than others. Some will sound like an American speaking that language very well. So it depends on the voice you select. And we continue to evolve our voice catalog. It's been interesting to see how people connect with Kokua and how that varies by platform. And I'll share some detail on that as well as time of day. But, initially when we started looking at the conversation summaries, we never look at the conversations directly as a philosophy within our company. Once in a while, we have to if we see like there's some patterns that don't look healthy. And that's happened once or twice, and where we had to look at like what's going on. Is this a spam bot, or is it something that we need to react to? But when we first launched, because 60% of our audience was male, when Kokua would say, "How are you feeling today?" They go, "Okay," fine, great. So we had to train the agent to kind of pull more of an emotional language out of the end user. And, it really had an amazing effect on the way people interacted with it. We worked with Meta to launch directly real-time voice cloning on the Quest and then also on mobile. And we've seen also the engagement increased right away once we did that. So it goes back to that personalization. And then one of the things is we were evolving the conversational qualities of it. When you build an app that's on the phone or on VR, there's a lot of overhead to it. And we really wanted to tune just the AI interactions. So we had this idea, let's just plug it into a phone number on the Twilio platform at the time, so that we could test it and train it and iterate on it. And then we realized talking on the phone was actually very compelling. So we launched a phone number, and also it makes access. It lowers the barrier to access. You think of unhoused people, you think of elderly people very comfortable with the voice form factor, but also texting we've seen a lot of activity on the phone number with texting, interacting with Kokua. And Kokua can proactively text you as a follow-up. And we're working on an NIH grant submission right now where Kokua will actually call you to follow up. And we're going to propose something specific for addiction recovery with that as a follow-up in between when they need to connect with their addiction coach or counselor or therapist. A new feature that we just launched, going back into gamification, is we know as a team how we feel every day showing up to work on something that has real impact in people's lives. And when it, being an entrepreneur, it's not for sissies. I can tell you that um, it's hard, and it's hard being a startup team, especially, when you see the market kind of go up and down. And so the mission itself is extremely motivating. And one of the things, I woke up one morning with this thought, like, how do we gamify that so our users can feel that sense of making a difference in other people's lives? Because we know that from 12-step recovery, et cetera, that is a big part of long-term recovery in any of those programs, is that you show up for yourself initially, but when you start to show up for others, then you start to see, long-term effects. So we, using the personalization of uploading images, we just launched this. It's going to launch next week on Android, and there's an updated iOS update going live on Monday. We've been testing it with people. It's called Give Kokua, and you upload an image of someone that might need some support, or you want to celebrate a big event in their life, or just let them know that you're thinking about you. And Kokua will generate this. It's kind of like a new form of storytelling meets greeting card meets, supportive message that you can send to them. They don't need to be a subscriber to receive it. And we've seen in early testing that people will play that message multiple times who receive it. And so it's a wonderful way to make someone feel like they did something for someone else. And so I'm excited about this feature. It uses real-time image gen on the back end, and it takes the image you upload and it kind of manipulates it in magical ways. You can edit it so you have full control over the experience. Now, one thing I will say, when you're thinking about, as Matt had mentioned in the beginning, AI initiatives and how that work, one of the things we learned very early on launching things with AI-powered features is you can implement a lot of guardrails and a lot of design, but once you have a lot of people using the app, suddenly new emergent properties will appear that you didn't expect. A really good example of that is when Google launched Gemini Image Gen, and we work with Google a lot, so we know their internal process. They'll do a lot of synthetic testing and training. Then they open it up to the whole company. So they'll have tens of thousands of people dog fooding a feature before it ever goes live. And within hours of releasing the image gen feature, they realized, like, oh, wow, we didn't weight historical accuracy properly. And they took it down, right? Because, people were generating Black Nazis and Asian female founding fathers, and it was, and so we watched that and we realized, like, you have to build into the UX, the user experience design of these applications, the ability to take something offline immediately. So rather than pushing a whole new app update that has to go through the certification, when we launched Kokua, we designed it so that the button to access it could be turned off from the server at any time. And, when we launched real-time image gen initially, we launched it and took it down 3-4 times, right, to tune it. And the challenge is you cannot see those things until you get a lot of people using them. So you really have to think proactively around how to iterate and evolve. And you could see Anthropic and ChatGPT, they've done this over and over and over. And it really is it's a paradigm shift for launching products and developers to work this way, but it's actually necessary to create safe products. You must have a lot of people using it, but you also have to be able to turn it off right away, right, and unplug it. We can talk about that in a bit, but the platform that we have is all the context and the mediation happens within the Kokua platform on the TRIPP side. So we have our own API gateway. There's a bunch of microservices that do voice generation, image generation, text-to-speech analysis. We have our own caching system so we can match multiple things like a bio signal to a piece of text to an image and allow it to be interrupted. And this reduces we don't have to have a hard dependency by building something directly on Anthropic or OpenAI. And if they do something which we don't like, we can just quickly shift over to something else. And that happened when OpenAI launched GPT-5. Like the first release of it was not great. They ended up getting a lot of backlash. We saw it immediately in our scores because there's a whole scoring system here that we have patented. And we immediately turned off GPT-5 access and stayed on GPT 4.4 while you know, OpenAI figured out their next release. So everybody's kind of working this way, but for us, building this has been a game changer and it's very differentiated. A lot of the AI apps out there are just building directly to one platform, LLM or, and their services. And I actually think that that introduces a lot of risk to the ecosystem, but also you're giving your user data, your IP to a single platform, where in this case, we can hold all the context. We can match it to their Apple Watch data, their Google Wear data. We can also hold the data in a way that protects the user's privacy as well, and not transfer anything that's personally identifiable to any of these other platforms. And I think this is going to become more and more important as people become more sophisticated about their data involvement, and how they are helping to evolve great value for these companies. On the clinical side, we actually have more than 40 published studies now. Over 35 have studied our app directly. Some are peer-reviewed, some are pilots, some are better designed than others. Because we're so broadly available as a consumer application, people have picked up our app and just studied it. And we love seeing the data, even when it, is inconclusive or I had one investor tell me, you shouldn't let people do that. What if they come back with something that's not positive? And I went, well, I want to know that as an entrepreneur. But so far, it's been actually very interesting data. We don't make any claims, but we are excited about areas where there's a lot of data starting to show promise, especially in anxiety and stress reduction. And we have 2 NIH grants using TRIPP that were focused on addiction. One is active now with Tulane University. And then the other one that we have is with Nathan S. Klein Institute and Manhattan Psychiatric for schizophrenia. And we've been working with that team for several years, but they got a major fast track award that will have a lot of extensive fMRI imaging at Weill Cornell and Manhattan Psych at 2 sites with 2 different populations. And these are some of the early data signals coming. One of the things, when you look at the span of the users contributing data to the body of research that has emerged around TRIPP, it's been over 400,000 users with the data. During the pandemic, when a lot of the PhD students couldn't do their dissertations, we made our data publicly available to them, and several of them did their PhD research using our data. And so that was obviously it was de-identified and anonymized for them, but this has been, ever evolving. We've even had there's a 3-phase trial out of St. Michael's College that's NASA funded, and we sent 20 headsets down to Antarctica to Palmer Station, and they did 2 9-month cohort, 3 cohorts actually, one without, and then 2 separate 9-month cohorts, and they even took pack data, looking at different immune markers and stress management. So Brian Crucian at NASA is analyzing that data right now. He was the PI on the study, and the researchers are writing the first publication for phase 1 right now. So I'm really excited about that because of the early signals that they got on the biomarker data. It's a very unusual study of its kind, and it was very well designed with shams, et cetera. A more recent study just came out well, this one was actually earlier, but they compared our mobile app to our VR app, and the mobile app had longer-term psychological benefits. The VR definitely is very good at de-escalating somebody in an agitated state, and that's actually the nature of the study at Manhattan Psychiatric. They've been using TRIPP out at Randall's Island now with the New York Office of Mental Health for several years, and they wanted to investigate more deeply what's happening in the brain. This study that just published last week on nature.com was the first that we've seen analyze using Kokua. So they used VR with students, and then they had them use Kokua on the mobile app in between the VR sessions. And so there were a couple of things I would have changed about the study design, but it was specifically for dealing with academic procrastination. So I thought that was an interesting study. And I'm meeting with the researchers next week. They want to expand the study even more and put in a stronger control group and also to look at the impact of the different modalities. So using Kokua only on mobile versus using it in combination with the VR. So it's a healthy ecosystem. We do take data storage and privacy and safety, to heart. I will say, as somebody who's worked in technology for a long time, nothing is impenetrable. And now with the AI agents, we have to be hyper vigilant because they're just getting more and more aggressive. When I was at Electronic Arts, there was a guy there who was one of the best cybersecurity people I've ever worked with, and we had lunch last week because DEF CON, I live in Vegas, and DEF CON was happening, and he really spoke open with me about how everyone's very concerned because these AI agents are very good. And the vulnerability is still the human social engineering, but the agents can now do it. They can call people up and sound like other people and pretend like they're employees and get access into systems. And this is happening everywhere right now. We just did a code audit, and the big issue that everyone has to think about, and I can tell you from working with universities and the government, it's not the best code on these systems. And so we're all vulnerable. Do you know? It's like my friend was saying, who I had lunch with, he goes, there's so much bad code out there, and the agents are looking for the paths into these systems. One thing that, I alluded to that we've seen by device type and time of day, there are different behaviors, even with the same person. So if you look in the morning, the interactions on mobile and VR tend to be like, help me set an intention, get my mind ready for the day, more meditation focused. Throughout later in the day, we start to see more mobile check-ins, and they're really around like work-related stress or they need help focusing. At the end of the day, it's really around decompressing. In VR, the conversations will be more philosophical, more existential, and but late at night on the phone number, and we have crisis moderation implemented in all our AI, where we can connect directly to 988 and other global equivalents of it through a partnership. We see the phone number gets the people who are really struggling. It triggers 65% of the crisis moderation triggers. And so I see a real opportunity here to work with getting humans in the loop on that, like a telehealth service. And I'm starting some of those conversations. And so it's been fascinating to look at that. So that's TRIPP. You can download the mobile app. There's a free trial if you don't have a VR headset. It's a compelling enough experience. It's continuing to evolve. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that. Anytime I can be reached on social media at Nanea on Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I refuse to call it X. So it's just anyway. So I'll pause there, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions. And I saw there are a lot of private message ask me like, where can I find the recording video? For me, we will host the all the speaker series event in our PD. So I will put the PD link, and I will do a follow up. So you can, if you miss anything, I know that right now is the time that faculty just finished the division meeting and wanna just go home and rest, because this is the first week of school just started. So
right.
yeah, this is the first week.
One thing, I'm not going to share the video with you, but we have just started testing Kokua powering a little robot.
Wow. Do you want to share it? It sounds fun. Yeah, feel free to share it.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. Well, I better not.
Okay, no problem.
I think my CTO will get.
Okay.
But if you're interested in experimenting in general with robotics, there's an open source platform called Reachy Mini, and you buy the device and you can start experimenting with different interactions. So we connected Kokua to it because for us it's like a VR device or mobile or smart glass. Okay, let's attach it to a robot, and it's so cute because you can create different behavior sets, but it can also see. That's what we were testing, is can it see your environment? So you think about like senior loneliness, how that could address, or even like, oh, you took that medication already, kind of thing, right? Even if it's static, it doesn't have to be a humanoid walking around your house. It can just be a little desktop companion that sits by you and is kind of there when you need it. Yeah, so it's been really fun to create a yeah, this culture of innovation, right? Like we really try to think of ourselves as a technology first company. We don't think of our apps as meditation apps because it's actually a small sliver of what we do. Of course, the AI can generate a meditation for you. Maybe what might be interesting for me to talk about, just considering your own environment, is how to drive AI adoption
Yeah,
within
that would be great.
because when I started Trip, we all came from the games industry, and the game developers, they're very innovative, but they like to do things a certain way. And I would imagine, having worked with people in academics, I've seen that as well, right? And you also kind of get these fiefdoms, right? Where the product people do it this way and the devs do it that way and the artists do it that way. Well, what we realized though early on, it was about 3 years ago, uh, me and our chief business officer were the voices in Trip because we were much cheaper than getting actors to do it. And we needed to have constant updates, right? So every week I would go into a recording studio for hours. And then we had all these sound engineers cleaning up, there's all these mouth noises that show up when you record audio. And then, on one day, the room tone will sound different than another day. And when you add files, it's just, it's a lot of work. And through Qualcomm, who's one of our investors, the chip manufacturer, they introduced me to a very early pioneer in AI voice. And they created a voice clone of my voice and our chief business officer's voice. And we started training their model to our style. And it was the first of its kind. And this freed up so much for us. And it also allowed us to launch Kokua 2.5 years ago. But what it did was it optimized our workflow because the files were clean. They always matched in quality. They had no mouth noises. They were perfect. And and the person who project managed that and was the product manager, she had never worked at a tech company before. She was a yoga teacher. So the fact that we took somebody because she knew the necessary quality that needed to appear in the voice, and she could work on the training of those models, which at that time, now it's so quick, but 3 years ago, it took about 2 months to train that. But the productivity gains, like we didn't need sound engineers anymore, et cetera. We stopped going into the studio. So there definitely was job loss as a result of doing that, which is hard. And of course, everybody saw that on the team. And I had to navigate a lot of anxiety around that as well. Within the engineering organization, different roles, they could see like, wow, we were just able to get better quality and we lost some of our they were contracted resources, but it definitely was like way before that conversation started happening out in the zeitgeist. And so as a leader, I could see, wow, this has to be navigated very delicately because one, you want to drive change because it did. I mean, the fact that it elevated this young woman into, I mean, she launched a major initiative, right? Like, which made her incredibly valuable in the market immediately, right? So there's opportunities, but there's also impact when you drive these changes. Just allocating time where people could experiment and try to integrate these things into the workflow. And it's been tremendously helpful for us as a small team because the impact on our output, you could see, like, as a small company, we've done so much product innovation. But the other thing that I've noticed is some of the processes that, as an industry of building software, you put in place, like agile development, 2-week sprints, etc. Today, we can ship code every day. And so the project management process was actually feeling very clunky and not right for what's happening right now and what was needed. And so I think that that also is, it can be painful for organizations, but it can also be very freeing if you can get the right type of developer or person that's, I like to call them full stack, right? Like they have maybe one or T-shaped people where they have one deep subject matter expertise in a vertical, but they're able to really look at things horizontally. And for us, it's been, how do you get people beyond just using AI as an answer bot and, less about prompting and designing agentic frameworks. And so I have found that more technical expertise is needed. And the interesting thing for the older people, having lived experience with what can go wrong and how you fire fought that in the past, is, I want to say, it is hella valuable when you're designing agentic frameworks, and way more than somebody fresh out of school. I think all this VC funding going to 16-year-olds right now is going to end poorly. I think, like, all this vibe coding happening is just going to be a mess, right? In like the 5-year timeline. But
It,
anyway, so that's been an interesting thing.
Nanea, one of the Rick White, I'm with Maricosta College, and I am in charge of the AI program.
Oh,
And
great.
one of the things that we're seeing from company to company is a flattening of the org chart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, of like what you're saying, is
Yeah.
that it seems like the normal process of the org chart is very lossy. So when it comes from the customers at the bottom level, and then let's say the developer is kind of as close to that customer experience as they can be, then
Yeah.
they pass it on, and that creates a lot of lossiness in the activity.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the companies that are successful are actually building a tighter relationship with the customer, even to the degree that I think I'm hearing in your product, where the customer is actually using the product, and the
Mm-hmm.
product is actually giving you even more, the developers even more direct insight.
Yeah,
So
that's the thing. So how you instrument your data is really important. And, I was a data product manager very early in my career. I started as a coder. So, having the knowledge of how systems get built, really important in today's world with this. And I rebuilt our entire data warehouse about a month ago in 2 weeks with Claude, just me and Claude. And
beautiful.
it has transformed, like, my ability to generate a board report, investor updates. Now I'm like hyper focused on our ad buys right now. I'm calculating in real time lifetime value, right? Which was impossible to get in real time before. And so I needed to get out of the way the data, the product managers, the analysts, because if I can just tell Claude exactly what I need as a business owner, and I know how data is structured and where it needs to look for those data or which streams to bring in, I could see I was never going to get it with the 10 people I had working on that 3 years ago. And
Yeah.
so this is our organization now is very flat.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
is very flat, and I think this is going to create a lot of organizational stress because people are comfortable with hierarchy. They're
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with a career path and structure. I would imagine in your world, it's,
Mm-hmm.
very much that way. But it is not the framework needed to, so this is where I think the next 5 years, that's going to be the source of a lot of pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I so at being a fan of Trip, the first thing I saw was Ram Dass, the
Thank you.
Ram Dass
Yes.
journey within.
Yeah.
Amazing, like mind
Do you know
blowing.
who Duncan Trussell is?
No, I'm not familiar.
He's a comedian. He's often on Joe Rogan, but he also, if you've ever watched Drunk History, he started that, and he's in it a lot. But he's the one who recommended us to the Ram Dass organization to work on that experience. So they approached us as to create it. It was right after he passed away as an homage to they wanted to take it on the Whole Life Expo that they were going to do, and then COVID hit. So
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It was no, just again, just such an interesting seminal moment where the technology and then the expression meet.
mhm.
And so, Stanford had done a lot of research on the value of empathy as the VR systems, these empathy agents where you're able to express kind of through these VR experiences, the ways that you feel.
Yes.
What are you what kind of feedback or experience are you getting or response do you get when you really lean into those empathy moments and make
Yeah,
that a
well,
part of your product?
a lot of the early empathy experiences were very powerful using immersive, but they made you feel horrible, like going into refugee camps, and you
Yes,
never wanted to
yes,
do them again, right?
yes, I
And
want
you
that.
got it, right? And and of
Yeah,
course academics are like all over that, right?
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
students creating these experiences, but I really wanted to build something that uh, celebrated the person taking time to show up for themselves in the moment.
mm-hmm.
And so that required helping them feel better
Yeah,
than when they started, not worse. And
yeah,
so it's been interesting that there are different ways to approach empathy. So our goal is like, can we get someone to develop compassion for themselves?
yeah,
And then now with the Give Kokua feature, they can extend that compassion to others and get a sense of purpose. The problem with a lot of mental health apps and mental well-being apps or wellness apps is they get you on a score that says you're in this percentile and here's optimal and you're not optimal, right? And so if you constant reinforcement that you're not okay, and the reality is like any strong meditation practice, if you can get someone to feel gratitude in the moment, no matter what's happening in their life, it does have a positive effect.
yeah,
And so you got to be careful with some of those gamification and scoring tactics when it
yeah.
comes to mental well-being, because they actually can make you feel worse, right? So I felt very strongly about that. And there were a lot of knockdown, drag out fights in our company. And I said, no, we have to make people feel like just taking the time to put that headset on them
Yeah.
is major step
Yeah.
for their self-care, right? And
Yeah.
even if it doesn't solve their problem, the fact that they did that, that they said, I'm going to support myself, that is the big thing, because especially with men,
Yeah.
the United States, 1 out of 4 more likely to commit suicide than women, but they don't ask for help
Yes.
way before they get into the state of crisis, right? They don't even know they need help.
Yeah. It feels like, even if you think of the Buddhist tradition, you have kind of two branches. You have emptiness, which
Right.
would be what that we would consider typically the meditative practice,
Oh,
looking
yeah,
at
yeah.
seeing
Mhm.
the universe for what it is, and then compassion, which is the act of moving into understanding, and that it feels like that your particular platform has the ability to kind of do both, to
Yeah.
generate a compassion and a feeling, but also at the same time, if I just want to kind of sit back and kind of tune, feel the emptiness and see the universe for what it is, it's pretty cool.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's a very influential book that I read when we were starting TRIPP called Altered Traits, and it was kind of a compilation of all the research around mindfulness and meditation. And I have a Tibetan Vajrayana practice, Dzogchen practice, so it's all based on compassion, right?
Mm.
The Dalai Lama is supposed to be the Buddha of compassion incarnate. So that tradition is aligned toward that. But in Dan Goleman and Richie Davidson's book, Altered Traits, they had studied all these meditation practices and what the neurological and emotional effects were. And hands down, the one that actually changed you as a person was the Tonglen practice, the loving kindness practice, which is designed to cultivate compassion. It actually changed who you were as a human being. And I was so inspired by that because, of course, I've seen that in my own life, right?
Yeah.
And we all know, we've all seen it in our own, challenging days, that when life feels like it's falling apart, when you just go, I'm just gonna focus on trying to do something nice for someone else, the transformative impact of that kind of action, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
And it gives you a sense of confidence. It gives you a sense of purpose. It gives you self-esteem to know that you're working, you're doing something for someone else, which is esteemable, right? If you can't
Yeah.
feel like from within, it's like, okay, well, let me just go and show up for someone else just for a few. This is how 12-step recovery works,
Right.
right?
Oh yeah. It's interesting as you say that, and again, this gets back to kind of that idea of empathy, right? Like, it felt like the Stanford version of the empathy, the academic version of the empathy might have been too big, right? Like, what if
It
I could,
sounds like a political
yeah,
statement of,
yeah,
okay, you're a
yeah,
white person, we're going to make you feel bad about what you did to the people of Hawaii. Or
right. What
I'm
what if
Hawaiian,
what
so
what if we could share how we felt with our others, right? Like, for our partners. Like, I just want to
yeah,
show you how, when you say this to me, how I feel. If I could give you that, and then you could have that empathy moment. Like, it feels like you have a platform that could do something like that. But
yeah,
but the
totally.
privacy part of that would be the part that I would be the most scared of. Is like, if
I
I
can,
can if I
I can,
control my own data, I'm good. But
yeah,
if
yeah,
you control my data, I'm going to be a little bit worried. Yeah.
yeah, of course. And so I'll talk specifically about that. The one thing I want to point out, though, of those 25 million feelings shared with us that we built with Kokua, And then now Kokua has evolved over the last 2 years because people have been interacting with it, and it's learning how to be more and more compassionate over time. It's kind of a co-created compassionate consciousness in and of
Alignment.
itself.
Yeah, it's a potential for AI alignment if you could plug it
Yeah,
in,
well,
right?
that's what we believe, that we want to solve the alignment problem around compassion and ensure that these systems, especially as they get into embodied forms, can be compassionate. So on the data, I think that, first of all, when you structure anything that has to do with talking with an AI, uploading your images, they are completely decoupled from any PII. So if the system gets penetrated, it can't be matched back, right? Without a lot of, you'd have to be really sophisticated to get into that, right? But we have looked at it. We're constantly hardening it. But, just a good practice is decouple all of that from anything PII. A lot of the systems, and I've worked on these for a long time, that take credit cards, we've learned, that you store data. And that's
Separate. Yeah.
the case with AI as well, right? You store it differently. Conversations do not get recorded. We summarize them. So they're happening in real time, but what gets stored is a summary. It's not a direct conversation. So, and that's by design. Our breath detection through the IMU, all of it's within the device and it's ephemeral, so it gets thrown out after the session. The user can opt in to share their data with us, and it's anonymized. And that helps us evolve the model, but we decouple it from any personally identifiable information. It's just a session ID that can allow us to kind of put a timestamp on it. So but all throughout, we want to give people a sense that they're opting into all the data. So even when we do the real-time voice cloning, we don't store their voice recording online. It's all translated into data, and you can delete it. And it's not associated with your phone number, your email, or any of that, right? So it's completely separate. And we leverage a lot of the security on Google's infrastructure. We're a Google Cloud partner. So working with big partners like that, they have a lot more security
Yeah.
people
Oh,
to,
yeah.
they're inherently GDPR compliant in some cases. So you want to structure your data process flow with user data in mind. That being said, I was at a conference, I can't say where, it was like a private, closed conversation with healthcare. And this was a couple of years ago, and it was AI focused. And half the room felt that patients should not have access to their own data. And the other half, and you can get which side I'm on,
Yeah.
thinks, oh, we should determine how much access you get to.
Right.
And so there's
Exactly right.
going to be a war, because Internet 2.0 monetized all of our actions in exchange for like free social media or this, but you have to look at an ad or but they became very wealthy on that. Younger people know that their interactions have value. And I think you're going to see an opportunity of innovating on new earning models around AI interactions and how much access to my data I'm going to give you. If you want to get down to my bio data, and maybe I do want you to have access to my gene data because I have a genetic profile that could help a lot of people, you got to pay me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my blood and treasure. My family gave that to me. We will win that fight, Nanea.
Yeah.
And we
And
will win that fight.
And there is a precedent on that, right? The woman that had that one rare gene that Merck was able to develop a whole new drug, and her family just won a major royalty award. So there is now legal precedence for this that, so it's going to get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Think
I
about when mobile started. No one, people just thought, oh, okay, it's for games, right? Which I was involved with. No one saw the Ubers, the gig economy, all the influencer economy, so the technology opened up all these new opportunities to earn and create that we weren't seeing. I think with AI, that's
It feels like the data itself, our individual data can be stored in a blockchain and it could be sharded everywhere. And it's
right.
just an encryption key that
Yeah.
basically Avengers assemble, right?
Yep.
And if somebody needs to have access to it, then away you go. And I think,
I do think that needs uh you need trust,
mhm.
right, on that chain. Who should regulate that and own that? I think
Us.
AI regulation is uh a hot topic, right? I'm more of the decentralized
Yeah.
crowd. The concentration of all that power. There's a lot of regulatory capture trying
Mhm.
to posture happening right now, and I think that's going to be personal data sovereignty is going to be a war. This is going to be a war.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, the free market will force good actors, right? Because if I don't trust you,
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you access to my data.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of the fear mongering around this is by design
Hmm.
because there's tremendous power.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even the AI data fear mongering, like what is the source of that? Who has vested interest in wanting us to slow down? You really do have to think about that. I mean, there's a lot of uh doomer narratives that aren't even based in fact happening, right? And there's
Yeah.
tremendous opportunity for solopreneurs, innovation, healthcare advancement, education. Like I went to Montessori school as a kid, right? I
Yeah.
whipped through those packets. I mean, I've been following this young woman, Jess Janae. Have you been following her on Twitter or YouTube? She's a Y Combinator founder. She's created a whole agentic framework work for homeschooling her kids based on Montessori. And she's got e-ink boards in her kitchen, and the agents write the kids' lessons for the day that they need to do, and they're all self-directed because it's her belief that she's not sure that a lot of the academic institutions right now are capable of preparing her kids for the future. And
And she's probably right.
I don't know if I
Like,
agree with that or not. I think there's some social constructs that are really important to coming together, but it's really fascinating what she's doing, and she's sharing it all online. And so, but I know for me that I was very fast as a kid and kind of adhering to the curriculum. I couldn't take it. It was too slow for me as a kid.
you're like, let's go. Can we just get going? I,
Well, imagine so personalized adaptive teaching,
I,
right? In
I,
real time. So you put the teacher in the loop, though, she's in the loop with her kids, right?
if you think about the way that our institutionalized system creates separation, it's the same thing that you're talking about, the fear of AI and everything else, right? It's like if we're afraid, we're farther away from awakening than we'll ever be. So to
Right.
me, when I look at tools like TRIPP, it's like you're really working on, what is awakening, which is feeling the connection to the universe, right? It's not about feeling this, it's
With
not
your
about being scared and separated. And
right.
I
And
get that's awesome.
yeah, thank you for that. And I think that there are variations on that theme for education as well, right? And I was at a healthcare and AI summit in Boston just a few weeks ago, and they were talking about, of course, you could hear all their crazy fear and how do you approve a product that adapts in real time to the individual and is constantly learning and iterating, right? Like they're trying to
And
figure
getting
out
us paid.
how do we deal
More
with
power,
it.
more power.
Yeah, but the other thing is they have all said how just having ambient listening, using AI for ambient listening in their interactions with doctor and patient has transformed their ability to actually be more present with the patient
Yes.
and also their own personal quality of life as it relates to patient data and the management of
We're not.
that. So I think, yeah, I definitely think there's a teacher student version of that can
True.
be incredibly
And
right? I
they're
mean, I have a lot of friends
our colleagues
and
are scared to death of it. Like they're scared to death because they're afraid that they're going to be supplanted by the technology and not realizing that connection is the whole game. Connection in the classroom, making people feel connected. Like that's where the real treasure is. It's
yeah,
not.
I agree with that. And the people who adapt to that and start innovating on how they approach their work will be the ones that survive that transition, but it's not going to be without casualties.
We
I
we we're really focused on trying to promote the idea of a human-centered approach to AI, where you focus on what you believe in, what you value, and how you set and achieve goals. And when you have that, you have agency. And when you have
well,
agency, you
it,
control the tool. The tool doesn't control you.
that's right. And then how do you use it for the in between times to allow uh, young people to become more self-directing, self-motivating, right? Which ultimately is needed to be successful in the world, right? As opposed to just following orders.
Yeah.
And how does that data stream help the teacher understand the student more and the population? That's where the big
Yeah.
opportunity is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I look at that in mental health, like we don't want to ever be a replacement for talking to a human being. But as you could see, there are no human beings available at 2 o'clock in the morning when struggling and they can't sleep.
Yeah.
But can that data stream be where Kokua would actually, if you're in early addiction recovery, get when your counselor shows up to work that next day, it's got a summary of all the people in their care in a way that is they can prioritize it. This is how we can use agentic workflows to really help us even be superhuman
Yeah.
in our roles, right? And I think it's one of the most exciting times to be alive. Although, look, I'm an entrepreneur, so I have to be optimistic.
Sure.
But I'm also being a woman working in tech and just a female business leader. I know that I've always had to show up with a lot of data and mind my P's and Q's very tightly. Because the data just shows